All right, hello, my name is Jasleen. My presentation is going to be on the politeness theory. Okay, so for the overview of how my presentation is going to look like is, I'm going to start out with the politeness theory. I'm going to be talking about what it is, and then I'm going to proceed on to the next slide, which is going to talk about the phases of politeness theory, which include the negative face and then the positive face. We'll get into more detail about what each face is. After that, I'll be talking about the independent research that I did on 3 separate articles, which were connected to the politeness theory and its different faces. After that, I'll be talking about relevance of independent research to cognitive science. Okay, so what is politeness theory? Politeness in language is studied to enhance our general understanding of social order and human cooperation within society. Politeness theory expanded and added to face theory by arguing that we have two faces. One is based on a desire for approval and acceptance by others, which is a positive face. And then the negative face is the desire to proceed without being impeded upon. Okay, so what are the two faces? So politeness theory relies in part on the idea that there are different kinds of faces, the positive face and the negative face. So we're going to start out with the negative face first, and then I'll be talking about the positive face. So the negative face is defined as the want of every competent adult member that his actions be unimpeded by others, or the basic claim to territories, personal preserves, rights to non-distraction, for example, the freedom of action and freedom from imposition. So basically, you just don't want to be judged. You want to have freedom for who you are without having to worry about what others are going to think. Positive face, on the other hand, is defined as the individual desire of a person that his or her personality is appreciated by others. Furthermore, this includes the way a person wants to be perceived by his or her social group. One example for positive face is the appreciation of individual achievements, meaning you just want to be accepted for who you are. You don't want to be judged, but if that means that you need to change yourself in order to fit a group, you will do that because you want to be on their good side, basically. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. I'll be talking about the independent research I did on 3 separate articles. So the first one, I'll be talking about the Speech Act of Apology by Pakistani English speakers. The second one will be the politeness strategies in higher education. And the last one is going to be politeness in email communication among Arab postgraduate students. So before I get into detail, I just wanted to say that the 3 articles that I did were really interesting as to how they talked about the politeness theory, because the way that they brought up the faces and how people tend to change who they are in order to get on other people's good sides, I thought it was very interesting because it's a very real thing that we do in today's time, because we want to fit in, we want to be liked by others. Even though we may say that I love myself for who I am and everything, it's very hard to actually reach the higher pyramid where you can say that, oh, I love myself so much that I don't care about anybody else, which is connected to psychology, which I will be talking about later on in the presentation. Okay, so the first article that I did was Speech Act of Apology by Pakistani English Speakers Through the Theory of Politeness by Faraq Abbas, Kenat Anjum, and Syed Bilal Pasha. So what the study was about was to examine the Apology Speech Act, articulating the theoretical context by Pakistani English speakers, ground elements and provided by politeness. So this research was designed for the research was designed for the study was the quantitative and the research instrument was used in the multiple choice discourse completion task. It was collected from a sample of 193 respondents, which honestly is not a lot, but saying that Pakistan does have its own language, which is Urdu. So having a sample of 193, I personally think that it represents not the whole population, but maybe like the whole school or the whole college well, because it's such a vast number, and that they're speaking English and they're speaking Urdu. So what one thing that I really found interesting about this article, was that Pakistan is very similar to India. I'm Indian myself, so I know that Pakistan and India are very male dominant countries. So what male like men have a very higher power. They have a higher position compared to women. So compared to women here in America, women in Pakistan and India, they do not have a lot of freedom. They do not have a lot of power. They can't really say what they want to say or wear what they want to wear or do what they want to do because of all the restrictions that they have over there. So when I was reading this article and they talked about, like for the fourth bulletin point, I said the study concludes that there is variation when apologizing from friends of same gender. So personally, like women have this ego, men have this ego, so it does get hard. But in the article, it did also mention, which I did not include on the slides, but it did mention that men had a harder time because men tend to think that they're correct a lot of the time, which may or may not be true, but they have a harder time accepting their mistakes because they like to have that power of authority and they don't want to lose that power through apologizing. Okay, so moving on to the next article, which was on politeness strategies in higher education, a student approach to the sense of humor by Elena Turkulet. So the student's perception about the sense of humor in the professor's behavior was the focus of the study. The researchers aimed to identify students' desires regarding the humor as promoted value. So when I was reading the article, I thought it was very interesting how students were able to basically just let themselves like go with the flow and just like try their best to get on the good side of their professors because they wanted to do well in the class. They thought that if they're on the good side of the professor, then if they have any questions or any concerns, it'll be answered faster and more efficiently. So in a way, just laughing to the jokes of the professor or just interacting with them made a huge difference because the professors tended to remember their students more because they remember having an interaction with them, even if it was over just a joke. So there were 153 females, and only one male, which I personally thought was very interesting because it doesn't really represent everyone. And then I feel like in a way it is saying that females tend to, I guess, like pretend more, if that makes any sense. But I didn't really agree with this whole experiment, to be honest, because it doesn't really show a vast like majority being represented. If it was, let's say, like half female half male, then I would have believed it a little more compared to now, because I don't know how males are reacting to this, because if women are the only one laughing to the jokes, then it doesn't really like make sense a lot, because even statistically it does say that females tend to laugh more to jokes compared to men, that it's easier to make like females laugh and everything. So there is something that I would like to fix in this um, experiment, is that I would like to see more males participating as well. But what I did like was that there was, I guess, a bigger range for the age. So it was from 19 to 52. So a lot of people were being represented, but there were still not enough males. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Article 3 was politeness in email communication among Arab postgraduate students in a Malaysian public university by Pramila Krish and Qasim Salman. So this was a computer-mediated communication, which is a common form of communication among students and lecturers at universities. So emails are very common to use in college, for your jobs, honestly, for almost anything. Emails are very easy to use. They're really useful. They're very practical. And over email, because you cannot totally express your emotions and your feelings, you can't maybe get the right words out like you would in person, maybe, or for some people it's the opposite. But you need to be very polite and very kind in your email so the other person does not get the wrong message that you may be mad or you're saying something very rudely. So you need to show more politeness, which is something that is very important for students so their professors or their fellow peers don't get the wrong message. So let's say if I am emailing my professor about my concern over grade, I can talk about it very differently while I'm talking to them in person compared to over mail, because I might I might think that my tone is better in person or vice versa during when I'm writing my emails, but my professor may think the complete opposite. They may think that I'm talking very rudely when I sent them an email, because there might be some words that may seem harsh compared to if I was talking to them in person. They would have seemed a little bit more softer or a little more pronunciated. Um, so in this article, the data revealed that positive politeness strategies are used by both male and female students, which is quite believable because for students, honestly, they just want to get on the good side of their professors. So they need to be as kind as they can in order to do that. So the students use the techniques and expressions to intensify teachers' interests. So 64% of the male students and 84% of the female students constituted the positive politeness strategy, which honestly goes back in hand to Article 2, because students they wanted to get their stuff done, they wanted to get on the good sides of their professors and just get everything done so it'll be easier for them. So if